Don't die on me. The words escaped before Nora could stop them. Her hands pressed against the stranger's chest, blood soaking warm through her fingers. The wound was fresh. Clean entry, ragged exit, rifle shot, maybe an hour old. She should have kept riding. The man's eyes flickered open. Gray like winter sky, they found hers and held. His hand lifted trembling and caught her wrist. Don't let go, he breathed. Nora's heart kicked against her ribs. She didn't answer, didn't promise, but she didn't pull away either. The sun hung low over the canyon ridge, painting everything gold and red. Blood and dust looked the same out here. Death came quiet in this country. She'd learned that the hard way. Can you stand? She asked. He tried, failed. His weight sagged against her shoulder. Nora gritted her teeth and half-dragged him to her horse. The mare snorted, uneasy with the smell of blood. Nora understood. Blood meant trouble, always had. It took 3 tries to get him into the saddle. By the time they reached her cabin, the sky had gone purple and the first stars were waking. Inside, she kicked the door shut and lowered him onto the table. He groaned but didn't cry out. Tough then. We're too far gone to feel it anymore. Nora lit the oil lamp. The small room glowed amber. 1 table, 1 chair, 1 bed shoved against the wall. A rifle mounted above the door. A revolver on her hip. This was her life now. Alone, armed, alive. She pulled her knife from her boot and cut away his shirt. The bullet was still in there, lodged beneath his collarbone. She'd have to dig it out. This will hurt, she said quietly. His eyes opened again, focused on her face. A faint smile ghosted across his mouth. Won't be the first time. Something about his voice steadied her. Low and rough, like wind through dry grass. She didn't know him, shouldn't trust him. But her hands stopped shaking. She poured whiskey over the blade. Over the wound. He hissed through his teeth but didn't look away. What's your name? She asked. Buying time, buying courage. Jeb, he said. Jeb Rowan. Well, Jeb Rowan, hold still. The first cut made him go rigid. The second made him grab her wrist again, hard enough to bruise, but he didn't pull her away. He held on, like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. Nora's pulse hammered in her throat. She could feel his heartbeat through his skin. Fast, strong, alive. Almost there, she whispered. The bullet came free with a wet sound. She dropped it into a tin cup and pressed a clean rag to the wound. His breathing evened. His grip loosened but didn't let go. Their eyes met. For a moment the world outside didn't exist. No past, no danger. Just the two of them, blood and lamplight, and the space between strangers that felt suddenly impossibly small. Don't let go, he said again. Softer this time, almost a question. Nora's throat tightened. She should have said no, should have pulled away, but something in his voice, in his eyes, cracked the walls she'd spent 2 years building. I won't, she heard herself say. Thunder rolled across the hills. The first drops of rain hit the roof like stones. Nora bandaged the wound with strips of cloth, her hands steady now. Jeb's fever was already climbing. She could feel the heat radiating off him. You need to stay warm, she said, pulling a blanket from the chest. She spread it over him, tucking it around his shoulders. He was shivering now, teeth chattering despite the summer night. Jeb's eyes drifted to the single bed against the wall, then back to her. Where will you sleep? He asked. Nora unbuckled her gun belt and laid it on the floor beside the bed. The revolver gleamed in the firelight. She'd killed 3 men with that gun, maybe 4. She'd stopped counting. Right here, she said, sitting on the edge of the mattress. And if you move wrong, you'll regret it. The corner of his mouth lifted. Barely. But enough. Fair enough. The storm hit in full. Rain lashed the windows. Wind howled through the canyon. The cabin creaked and settled like an old ship riding rough seas. Nora lay down, fully clothed, boots still on. Her back to him, her hand on the gun. She shouldn't have brought him here. Shouldn't have saved him. Men brought trouble. Always had. Always would. But when she closed her eyes, all she could feel was the warmth of his hand on her wrist, the way he'd looked at her. Not with fear, not with want, just recognition. Like he knew what it was to be alone. Like he understood. Thank you, Jeb whispered into the dark, for not leaving me to die. Nora didn't answer. Couldn't. Her throat was too tight. Outside, lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the walls. Inside, the fire crackled. Two strangers lay side by side in the smallest of spaces, close enough to hear each other breathe. And for the first time in 2 years, Nora Bell didn't feel quite so alone. But she knew better than to trust it. Morning always came, and with it questions, answers she wasn't ready to give. Who was he? Why was he shot? And why, when she should have been afraid, did his presence feel like the first safe thing she'd known since the day she pulled the trigger and became a widow? The storm raged on. The night stretched long. And somewhere in the dark a decision was being made, one neither of them could see yet. But it was coming. It always did. Morning came gray and cold. Nora woke to the sound of labored breathing. She turned, heart lurching, and found Jeb still beside her. His face was pale, slick with sweat. The fever had taken hold. She pressed her hand to his forehead. Burning? Jeb, she said quietly. His eyes opened, unfocused. He tried to speak, but only managed a rough sound in his throat. Nora rose quickly, crossed to the stove and stoked the fire. She filled a pot with water from the barrel and set it to boil. Willow bark, she had some somewhere. Left over from last winter when she'd caught pneumonia and nearly died alone in this cabin. Alone. The word tasted bitter now. She found the bark wrapped in cloth, crumbled it into the water, and let it steep. While she waited, she wrung out a rag in cool water and pressed it to Jeb's forehead. His hand found hers again. Instinct, maybe. Or something else. You're still here, he rasped. Where else would I be? A faint smile. Smart women run. I'm not smart, Nora said. I'm stubborn. He laughed. It turned into a cough that made him wince. She helped him sit up enough to drink the bitter tea. He grimaced but swallowed it down. What happened to you? She asked. The question had been building since last night. Who shot you? Jeb's jaw tightened. He looked away toward the window where rain still streaked the glass. Wrong place, he said finally. Wrong time. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Nora studied him, the hard line of his mouth, the way his eyes went distant. She knew that look. She wore it herself most days. You're running from something, she said. So are you. The air between them went still. Truth had a way of doing that, stripping everything bare. Nora stood, turned away. Get some rest. That fever's not done with you yet. But Jeb's voice stopped her. The gun, he said. On your hip. You wear it like you've used it. She didn't turn around. I have. How many? Enough. Silence. Then softer, me too. The day passed slowly. Jeb drifted in and out of fevered sleep. Nora changed his bandage twice, forced more tea down his throat, kept the fire burning. By afternoon the storm had cleared. Pale sunlight broke through the clouds. Nora stepped outside for the first time since bringing him home. The air smelled clean, washed, like the world had been scrubbed raw. She scanned the canyon. No riders, no dust trails, but they'd come. Eventually, men with bullets in them didn't end up on the border by accident. Someone would be looking. When she came back inside, Jeb was awake watching her. You always this jumpy? He asked. You always this nosy? Another almost smile, stronger this time. Nora pulled the chair close to the bed and sat. For a long moment neither spoke, just the crackle of fire, the distant call of a hawk. Why'd you save me? Jeb asked finally. Nora looked at her hands, calloused, scarred, hands that had held a gun more than they'd held anything gentle. I don't know, she said honestly. You could have left me. I could have. But you didn't. She met his eyes. Gray and clear now, fever breaking. No, she said. I didn't. Why? Nora's throat tightened. She thought about the last 2 years. The silence, the solitude, the way she'd convinced herself she was safer alone. Maybe I was tired, she said quietly, of letting people die. Something flickered across Jeb's face. Understanding maybe, or recognition. Who'd you lose? He asked. Nora stood abruptly. That's not your business. Fair enough. He didn't push, just lay back, eyes on the ceiling. We all got ghosts. She wanted to argue, wanted to shut him out, but the truth was sitting heavy in her chest, and she was so damn tired of carrying it alone. My husband, she said, the words scraping out like rust. 2 years ago. Jeb didn't say anything. Didn't offer empty sympathy. He just listened. He was a good man, Nora continued, her voice barely above a whisper, until he wasn't. The fire popped. Shadows danced on the walls. He started drinking. Got mean. Then meaner. She swallowed hard. One night he came at me with a broken bottle, said I'd embarrassed him in town, said I needed to learn my place. Her hand drifted to the gun on her hip. I shot him, she said flatly. Right there in our kitchen. Sheriff called it self-defense. Town called it murder. Either way, I became the woman who killed her husband. Jeb's eyes stayed on her. No judgment, no pity, just steady. So I came here, Nora finished. Middle of nowhere, where no one knows my name, where I don't have to explain. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that only came when someone truly understood. My wife died 3 years ago, Jeb said finally. Fever took her. I was on the trail, chasing bounty, didn't make it back in time. Nora's chest ached. I quit after that, he continued. Tried to settle, but everywhere I went people knew what I'd been. Killer for hire, even if the law said it was legal. He turned his head to look at her. So yeah, he said, I'm running too. That night Jeb's fever broke for good. Nora made stew from dried meat and beans. They ate in silence, the kind that felt less like strangers and more like two people who'd said enough. After Jeb stood for the first time, wavered, caught himself on the table. Easy, Nora said, moving to his side. I'm fine. You're stubborn. So are you. Their eyes met. Close now. Close enough that Nora could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell the faint scent of leather and smoke that clung to him even through the fever. Her heart did something stupid, something dangerous. She stepped back. You need more rest, she said, voice rough. Jeb nodded slowly, but before he turned away he said, Nora. She froze. She hadn't told him her name. How did you talk in your sleep, he said quietly. You said it once, last night. Heat crept up her neck. What else did I say? Nothing that matters. He paused. Just thank you for saving me, for trusting me enough to tell the truth. Nora didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. But as Jeb lowered himself back onto the bed, she felt something shift, some invisible wall cracking just a little more. And outside, in the distance, hoofbeats echoed through the canyon, coming closer. Nora heard them before she saw them. 3 riders, maybe 4, moving slow through the canyon, searching. She was at the window, rifle already in hand. Jeb sat up, wincing as the movement pulled at his wound. How many? He asked. 3 that I can see. They're looking for me. It wasn't a question. Nora glanced back at him. His face had gone hard. The easy warmth from last night was gone, replaced by something colder, something she recognized. Survival mode. Who are they? She asked. Jeb stood, slower this time, but steadier. He crossed to the window and looked out. His jaw tightened. Bounty hunters, he said. Or worse. Worse? Men I used to work with. He turned to face her. Before I quit. They don't take kindly to people walking away. Nora's grip tightened on the rifle. What did you do? I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. A killing. Not bounty work. Murder. Cold-blooded. His voice was flat. I was supposed to keep my mouth shut. I didn't. So they came after you. They always do. The hoofbeats grew louder. Closer. Nora moved to the door, checked the bolt. Solid. But it wouldn't hold long if they decided to break it down. You got another gun? Jeb asked. She nodded toward the chest in the corner. Under the blankets. He pulled out an old revolver. Checked the cylinder. 5 rounds. Not much, he said. It'll have to do. They stood on opposite sides of the window now. Waiting. The riders emerged from the tree line. 3 men, rough-looking, armed. The one in front was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. He scanned the cabin, eyes sharp. That's Kane, Jeb said quietly. Leader, smart, dangerous. Kane raised a hand. The riders stopped 50 yards out. Jeb Rowan. Kane's voice carried across the clearing. We know you're in there. Come out peaceful and maybe we let the woman live. Nora's blood went cold. Jeb glanced at her. I can go. End this now. They'll kill you. Maybe, but they'll leave you alone. You don't know that. I know Kane. He's after me, not you. Nora shook her head. You're not walking out that door. Nora. No. Her voice was steel. You came here bleeding. I saved you. That makes you mine to protect. Something flickered in Jeb's eyes. Surprise. Maybe something deeper. Before he could argue, Nora stepped to the door, cracked it open, and called out. He's not here. Kane laughed, low and ugly. You're a bad liar, lady. I found a man bleeding 2 days ago. Patched him up. He left this morning. Which direction? North. North. Kane tilted his head. Funny, we came from the north. Didn't see anyone. Nora kept her face blank. Then maybe you weren't looking hard enough. One of the other riders, younger with a twitchy trigger finger, nudged his horse forward. She's lying, Kane. Let me go in there and... Stay back, Decker, Kane said, not taking his eyes off Nora. The lady and I are having a conversation. He dismounted, slow, deliberate. Nora's finger moved to the trigger. Here's the thing, Kane said, walking closer. 20 yards now. I don't care much for liars, and I got a feeling you're protecting someone who doesn't deserve it. I'm not protecting anyone. Then you won't mind if we come in and look around. I mind. Kane stopped. 10 yards, close enough that Nora could see the cold calculation in his eyes. You know what Jeb did? Kane asked. He killed a good man, shot him in the back. No trial, no justice, just murder. That's a lie. The words came from behind her. Jeb stepped into the doorway, gun raised. The man you're talking about ambushed a family, Jeb said, voice steady. Killed the father, was about to kill the wife and kids when I stopped him. You were there, Kane. You saw it. Kane's smile didn't reach his eyes. I saw a man who couldn't follow orders. I saw a man who had a choice. Jeb shot back, and I made mine. And now you're gonna die for it. Kane's hand moved toward his gun. Nora fired first. The shot kicked up dirt 2 feet in front of Kane's boots. He froze. Next one goes higher, Nora said calmly. Kane looked at her. Really looked, saw the steadiness in her hands, the lack of fear in her eyes. You're making a mistake, lady. Wouldn't be my first. For a long moment, no one moved. The wind picked up, carrying dust across the clearing. Then Kane raised his hand slowly and stepped back. This ain't over, Jeb, he called. Not by a long shot. I know. Kane mounted his horse. The other 2 followed. But before they rode off, Kane turned back one last time. You got 3 days, he said. Then we come back, and next time we won't ask nice. They disappeared into the canyon, hoofbeats fading into silence. Nora lowered the rifle. Her hands were shaking now. Delayed reaction. Jeb touched her shoulder. Gentle, grounding. You okay? She nodded. Couldn't speak yet. That was brave, Jeb said quietly. And stupid. A laugh bubbled up, sharp and unexpected. Yeah, well, stupid's becoming a habit. They stood there in the doorway watching the empty canyon. The sun was sinking now, painting everything gold. They'll be back, Jeb said. I know. You should leave. Go somewhere safe. Nora turned to face him. This is my home. Nora, I spent 2 years running from ghosts, she said. I'm done running. Jeb's eyes searched hers. You barely know me. I know enough. You don't owe me anything. Maybe not, she held his gaze. But I'm choosing to stay anyway. Something in Jeb's expression softened, broke open just a little. Why? He asked, voice rough. Nora thought about it. About the loneliness, the silence, the way she'd convinced herself she didn't need anyone. And then she thought about the last 2 days, the way Jeb looked at her, not with pity, not with judgment, just with understanding. Because I'm tired of being alone, she said simply. Jeb's hand was still on her shoulder, warm, solid, real. So am I, he whispered. The space between them felt charged. Electric. Nora's heart pounded. She should step back, should keep the walls up, should protect herself. But she didn't. Instead she said, We've got 3 days. To do what? Figure out how to survive. Jeb's mouth curved, almost a smile. Together? Together. The word hung in the air, a promise, a risk, A beginning. And as the sun dipped below the canyon rim, two broken people stood in a doorway, choosing not to be alone anymore. Even if it meant fighting for it. Even if it meant risking everything. Because some things were worth the fight. And maybe, just maybe, each other was one of them. The first morning Nora woke to find Jeb already outside. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, hands on his hips, studying the canyon like a man reading a battle map. The wound in his shoulder pulled tight when he moved. But he didn't favor it. Stubborn. She brought him coffee. He took it without looking, his eyes still on the horizon. "They'll come from the north," he said quietly. "Kane's not stupid. He knows the southern pass is too narrow." Nora sipped her own cup. The coffee was bitter. She'd run out of sugar weeks ago. "How many will he bring?" "More than 3. Jeb finally turned to face her. "He'll want numbers, intimidation." "Will it work?" His eyes found hers, gray and steady. "Not if we don't let it." Something in his voice settled her. Not confidence exactly, more like resolve. The kind that came from a man who'd already lost everything once and refused to lose again. They spent the day preparing, but it didn't feel like work. It felt like partnership. Jeb moved furniture while Nora checked ammunition. She pointed out weak spots in the walls. He reinforced them with planks torn from the woodshed. At one point Jeb was hammering a board across the window when the nail bent. He swore under his breath. Nora smiled despite herself. "You always this bad with a hammer?" "Only when people are watching. Then I'll look away." "Too late. You've seen my shame." The laugh that escaped her felt strange. Foreign, like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. But Jeb smiled back, and for a moment the weight of what was coming didn't feel quite so heavy. By evening the cabin looked like a fort built by desperate hands. Furniture stacked against windows, firewood piled as barricades, the door reinforced with everything they could spare. They sat on the porch as the sun bled out across the canyon. Nora had made beans. Not much, but Jeb ate like it was a feast. "This is good," he said. "It's beans." "Still good." She shook her head, but warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had said thank you for something as simple as food? Jeb set his plate down and leaned back against the post. The light caught his profile. Strong jaw, tired eyes, a man carrying too much weight for too long. "Tell me something," Nora said. "Something that's not about guns or blood or running." He glanced at her. "Like what?" "I don't know. Something real." Jeb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Sarah used to sing. Not well. She couldn't carry a tune to save her life. But she'd sing anyway. While she cooked. While she sewed. Just all the time." Nora could hear the ache in his voice. "I used to tease her about it." Jeb continued. "Told her she was scaring the horses." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. After she died, the silence was the worst part. No singing, no humming, just nothing. Nora's throat tightened. She knew that silence had lived in it for 2 years. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be. I got 3 good years with her. That's more than some people get." He turned to look at Nora. "Really look." "What about you?" he asked. "Before everything went wrong, what were you like?" Nora thought back. It felt like remembering a different person. "I wanted to be a teacher," she said. "Like your Sarah. I loved books, loved the idea of shaping young minds." "What stopped you?" "Thomas." The name still tasted bitter. "He said teaching wasn't for wives. Said my job was the house, the meals, him." "And you listened?" Nora's jaw tightened. "I was 18. I didn't know I had a choice." Jeb didn't say anything, just reached over and took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused, but warm. They sat like that as the stars came out, hands linked, 2 people who'd learned the hard way that sometimes survival meant letting someone else in. The second day the weather turned. Dark clouds rolled in from the west, heavy and low. The air tasted like copper, like a storm that had been building for a long time. Nora was inside loading rifles when Jeb came through the door, soaked from a sudden downpour. "It's coming," he said. "Not talking about the rain." "How do you know?" "I can feel it." Nora understood. She'd felt it too. A pressure in the air, a wrongness. Jeb peeled off his wet shirt. The bandage on his shoulder was pink with fresh blood. "You're bleeding again," Nora said, crossing to him. "It's nothing." "Let me see." He didn't argue. just stood still while she unwrapped the bandage. The wound had torn slightly. Not bad, but not good either. Nora cleaned it with whiskey. Jeb hissed but didn't pull away. "You should be resting," she said. "Can't afford to rest. Can't afford to bleed out either." Her hands were gentle as she rewrapped the wound. Jeb watched her face. The concentration. The care. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "I've had practice. Taking care of people. Taking care of myself." She tied off the bandage. "But yeah, people too." Jeb's hand came up, caught her wrist. "Not hard, just there." "Thank you," he said. "For all of it. The saving, the staying, the fighting." Nora's heart kicked. She was close enough to see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating off his skin. "Don't thank me yet," she said, voice rough. "We're not out of this." "Maybe not. But if I'm going down, I'm glad it's standing next to you." Something in Nora cracked, some last piece of wall she'd been holding up. "Jeb, I mean it." His thumb brushed over her wrist. "I haven't felt this alive in 3 years, and I know that's a hell of a thing to say when we might die tomorrow. But it's true." Nora couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the warmth of his hand, the weight of his words. "I feel it too," she whispered. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Jeb leaned in, slow, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His lips brushed hers, soft, questioning. Nora answered by closing the distance. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, like two people drowning and finding air in each other. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Well," Jeb said, voice rough. "That was... yeah." They stood there, foreheads touching, the storm raging outside. "We should probably get back to preparing," Nora said. "Probably." Neither moved. The third day dawned gray and cold. They woke tangled together on the narrow bed. Neither had meant to fall asleep, but exhaustion had won. Nora opened her eyes to find Jeb already awake, watching her. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." Outside, rain hammered the roof. Inside, the world felt small, safe, like maybe they could stay here forever and the danger would forget to find them. But then came the sound of hoofbeats. They both moved at once, grabbed weapons, took positions. Through the rain-blurred window, Nora counted 6 riders. "He brought friends," she said. Jeb's jaw was set. "Good. More targets." The riders stopped 50 yards out. Kane sat tall in the saddle, rain dripping off his hat. "Jeb Rowan," his voice cut through the storm. "You got one more chance to make this easy." Jeb opened the door just wide enough to be seen. "I'm done making things easy for you, Kane. Then the woman dies with you." "She's got a name," Jeb called back. "And she's meaner than you think." Nora almost smiled. Kane raised his hand, and hell broke loose. The first shot didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like the end of the world. Nora heard the wood splinter before she felt the heat of the bullet pass her cheek. Her body moved before her mind caught up. Down, roll, up again with the rifle. She didn't think, didn't aim, just fired toward movement. A man fell. The rain turned everything into shapes and shadows. Gun smoke mixed with storm clouds. Nora couldn't tell sky from earth anymore. Jeb was shouting something she couldn't hear over the roar in her ears. Another shot. This one punched through the window beside her head. Glass exploded. She felt it bite into her arm, but there was no time for pain. Only survival. She spun, fired, reloaded, fired again. The world narrowed to breath and trigger, and the desperate hope that when the smoke cleared, Jeb would still be standing. Then came the smell. Not gunpowder, something sweeter, sharper. Smoke. Real smoke. Nora's head snapped toward the roof. Orange light flickered through the cracks. The cabin was burning. "Jeb," her voice cracked. He was already beside her, blood on his face. She didn't know if it was his. "Back window," he said. Not loud, but certain. She wanted to argue, wanted to save something, anything. But flames were crawling across the ceiling like living things, and there was no time for sentiment. Jeb kicked out the glass, lifted her through. She hit mud, tasted rain and copper, rolled to her feet with the revolver slick in her palm. A rider charged through the smoke. Nora pulled the trigger. The horse screamed. The man didn't. Jeb landed beside her. His breathing was ragged. The bandage on his shoulders soaked red. But his eyes were clear. "Stay close," he said, like she'd be anywhere else. The cabin roared behind them. 2 years of her life going up in flame. The table where she'd eaten alone. The bed where she'd slept cold. The walls that had kept the world out. All of it burning. And somehow, watching it go, Nora felt lighter. Kane stepped out of the smoke. He looked worse than she remembered, favoring his left side, blood soaking through his shirt, but his gun was steady. "You cost me everything, Rowan," he said, voice hoarse from smoke or rage or both. "You did that to yourself," Jeb replied. "Maybe." Kane's eyes shifted to Nora. "But she's going to pay for it too." Nora stepped forward, not back, forward. Jeb's hand caught her wrist. Gentle, grounding. But she pulled free. "You know what I learned?" Nora said. Her voice didn't shake. "I learned that fear makes you small. I was small for a long time. Let men make me that way." She raised her gun, not shaking, not hesitating. "I'm done being small." Kane looked at her, really looked. Maybe saw something he recognized. Maybe just saw someone who'd already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. His gun lowered, just an inch. Behind him, his last rider was already turning his horse, gone before the next breath. Kane stood alone in the rain, a man with no crew, no leverage, no win. "He worth it?" Kane asked, nodding toward Jeb. Nora didn't turn around, but she felt Jeb beside her, solid, steady, real. "Yes," she said simply. Kane's mouth twisted. Not quite a smile. More like respect for something he didn't understand. "Then I'm done," he said. "You're both ghosts to me now, dead and buried." He walked to his horse, mounted slow, every movement pain. Before he rode away, he looked back one last time. "Don't make me regret this kindness." "You won't," Jeb said. Kane disappeared into the canyon, swallowed by rain and distance, and the kind of quiet that only comes after violence. Nora's legs gave out. Jeb caught her before she hit the ground, held her while the shaking started, while her breath came in sharp gasps, while the fear she'd been holding back crashed over her like a wave. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "You're safe. We're safe." She couldn't speak, could only hold on. Fingers twisted in his wet shirt, face pressed against his chest where his heart hammered proof that they were both still alive. The cabin burned itself out behind them. The rain finally won, left only smoke and ash and the skeleton of what used to be. Nora pulled back enough to look at it. "It's gone," she whispered. "I know. Everything I had. Everything I built. I know." She waited for the grief to come. The loss. The anger. But all she felt was tired, and strangely, impossibly free. "I don't know what to do now," she admitted. Jeb's hand came up, cupped her face. His thumb brushed rain from her cheek. Or maybe tears. She couldn't tell anymore. "We start over," he said. "Together." That word again. Together. It used to scare her. Now it felt like the only solid thing in a world that had just burned down. "I don't know how to do that," Nora said. "Neither do I." Jeb smiled, soft and sad, and real. "But I'd rather fail with you than succeed alone." Something in Nora's chest cracked open. Not breaking. Opening. She kissed him. Hard and desperate and grateful. Tasting smoke and rain and survival. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jeb rested his forehead against hers. "We'll build something better," he said. "Not walls to hide behind. A home to live in." "How do you know it'll work?" "I don't." His eyes held hers. Honest. Unflinching. "But I know I want to try." Nora looked at the ruins of her cabin, at the canyon stretching wide and wild around them, at the man standing beside her with blood on his shoulder and hope in his eyes. And she chose. "Okay," she said. "Let's try." The new cabin took 3 months to build. Not because they didn't know how, but because they took their time, made it right, made it theirs. Nora chose where the windows went. Jeb built the frame. They argued about the porch, compromised on 2 chairs instead of 1. Small things. But they mattered. The first night in the finished cabin, they sat outside watching stars emerge. No furniture yet, no curtains, just bare wood and possibility. You happy? Jeb asked. Nora thought about it. About the last 3 months. The laughter while hammering nails. The quiet mornings with coffee. The nights sleeping close in a tent while the cabin rose around them. Yeah, she said, surprised by how true it was. I think I am. Jeb reached over, took her hand, his palm rough and warm and familiar now. Good, he said. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Then Jeb shifted, pulled something from his pocket. A ring, simple silver, a little tarnished. It was Sarah's, he said quietly. I know that might. It's beautiful, Nora interrupted. She'd want you to have it. I think, Jeb's voice was rough, I think she'd like you. Nora's throat tightened. She took the ring, held it to the starlight. I wish I could have met her, she said honestly. Me too. You loved her. I did. Jeb met her eyes. And I love you. Both things are true. Nora slipped the ring on her finger. It fit like it had been made for her. Thomas didn't deserve my loyalty, she said, but loving him taught me what I didn't want. And now, she looked at Jeb, now I know what I do. What's that? This you. Us. Jeb pulled her close, kissed her slow and deep and sure, like they had all the time in the world. Like the past couldn't touch them anymore. Like the future was something they could build with their own hands. When they finally went inside, Nora noticed something carved into the doorframe. 4 words in Jeb's careful script. Here we start again. She traced the letters with her fingers, then turned to find him watching her. You like it? He asked. I love it. Good. Because that's us now. Starting again. Together. Nora pulled him close, breathed him in. This man who'd stumbled into her life bleeding and broken and somehow made her whole. Together, she whispered. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, full of possibility, full of hope, full of the quiet promise that sometimes, after everything burns down, you find something better in the ashes. Not what you had before. Something new. Something real. Something worth fighting for. The canyon wind sang through the rafters, the stars wheeled overhead, and inside the small cabin with its 2 chairs and 1 bed and a doorway marked with hope, 2 people who'd been lost found their way home. Not to a place, to each other, and the end. If this story of survival, courage, and unexpected love touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Wild West Untold Love for more tales of redemption on the frontier. And if a moment or a feeling in this story stayed with you, we'd love to hear it in the comments below. Because sometimes the strongest souls are forged in the darkest places, and the greatest love stories begin with the simplest act of kindness.